The Journey Back, Chapter 18, Deception. "Hey, how's it going?" Woody asked after slamming the door to his pickup. Like he'd never been gone for 4 whole days without a word. Like nothing ever happened. I just sat at the picnic table and stared at him because I was pretty ticked off that he had disappeared and left me with Luke. He came over to the table and plopped down across from me. "Sorry," he said when I realized I wasn't going to jump up and down to welcome him home. His eyes fell away from mine. I got in trouble and spent a couple nights in jail. That probably explained his bloodshot eyes, the dirty hair, and rumpled clothes. But I didn't have a lick of sympathy for him. "That's just great," I said flatly. Then I let my hands fall open. I mean, what if I wasn't here? What would have happened to Luke? Honestly, it blows my mind how many adults should not be taking care of kids. Woody lifted his head. "But we had a deal, you and me. I asked if I could trust you to take care of Luke when I wasn't here." "You didn't even call us," I shot back. "Who was I going to call? Neither one of you has a phone." That sounded pretty lame to me, because he could have called somebody. I leveled my eyes at him. "You're about as good as a dad as my own, and that's no compliment." He sighed. "Where's Luke now?" "It's Tuesday morning. He's in school." "Good, that's good," he said. "Thanks." I didn't say you're welcome. "Look, I'm really sorry," Woody said. "I love Luke more than anything else in the world. You gotta believe that. My life is nothing without that little boy." "Then you should have thought about him," I suggested. Woody nodded. "You're right, I should have. No question." Silence for a moment. I waited for him to go on because I figured he owed me an explanation. "I'm not a perfect person," he admitted. "Not by a long shot, but God knows I do want to be a better father, even if I do have my own faults." "What is it, drinking?" I asked. He shook his head and met my gaze. "Not so much that as the gambling. I just keep thinking I'll come out ahead, that Luke and me, we'd have the extra money we need." He continued moving his head back and forth slowly. I can't help myself. The other night, I started losing big and got told I couldn't stay at the blackjack table. I don't do too good with people telling me what to do. I don't know. I thought that me and Luke getting on the road and moving to a new place, that we'd have a fresh start. He was quiet again, and again I waited. I didn't ask him to tell me his life story, but he started in anyway. "I got in a lot of trouble when I was a boy. There was 10 of us kids. We was dirt poor, and I had a lousy home life with nobody caring much about me or what I did. So I skipped school a lot. I was always running off, stealing stuff. But I remember I had a guidance counselor once in high school before I quit, and this guy told me a story about a dog trying to get away from the kite that was tied to his tail. He said no matter how far the dog run, every time he sat down to rest, he'd turn around and see the kite. He was always running from it, but it was always there." Well, that's me, all right. Was then, is now. I keep thinking a new place is a fresh start, only I never change who I am, so things just stay the same. I knew he was opening up and being truthful because he wanted me to understand, and I could see that even if he did screw up, Woody loved his kid and was sorry for what he'd done. If anyone could understand it, it ought to be me. I had a ton of faults and was plenty sorry for what I'd done too, but it didn't mean I cared any less about my mom and my brother and sister. "Well," I said finally, I wasn't angry anymore. "You're just about out of food. There's no milk, no eggs, no cereal, nothing." I didn't mention the venison we'd been feasting on because I figured that didn't count. "I'll make a food run right now," Woody said. I pulled a piece of paper out of my pocket. "Here's a list I've been keeping. The stuff you need most. You don't have to get dog food. Buddy's not your problem." Woody took the list, but he didn't even unfold or look at it. He just slid it in a pocket on the front of his shirt. I'll take care of it right now," he said. Then he got up and left. Somehow, we fell back into a routine that week. I kept a low profile at the campsite, but even so, I had a lot new friends on account of that venison. People walking by from time to time would call out, "Hey Gary, what's up?" And I'd wave back. Evenings, I made dinner and helped Luke with homework, but his dad was the one who'd come in and read to him at bedtime. Luke was still reading that book Tornado for school, but it was funny how no matter where they ended, Luke always wanted to start on page 1. Tornado by Betsy Byers, he began. Twister, Pete yelled. Twister. Mornings, I got Luke off to school, then I'd clean up and hang out until Luke got off his bus at 3. After lunch one day, returning from a walk, I saw Woody's truck and caught a glimpse of him disappearing into the bathhouse with a towel over his shoulder. He must have gotten off work early. My eyebrows went up because I'd been waiting for a chance like that. Stepping into his tent, I looked for his jean jacket and saw it right away, tossed on his cot. He took care to hide that jacket, probably because he suspected I'd go through it, which is exactly what I did. Hurriedly, I checked out the pockets looking for the cell phone he claimed he didn't have. Found it right off, too. I quick grabbed a pencil from the crate by Luke's bed to write down the number on a candy wrapper, the only paper I could find. I needed that number in case I needed to get in touch with him in an emergency, or in case he disappeared again. After slipping the phone back, I come across his wallet. My heart really started pounding because I didn't want to get caught with that in my hands. Fingers shaking, I flipped through it fast. He had about $10, which I didn't steal, a gas card, a credit card, and I had to stop for a minute. His driver's license. It was a Maryland license, and this time the picture looked just like the Woody I knew with blonde hair and a full beard. But the name was not the same as the one on the Texas license. This license had the name Sherwood Hawkins. And I wondered, was that Woody's adventure name? One of the licenses was fake. I knew it was important. I knew it was an important discovery. Woody was hiding something. But what? I stuffed everything back in the wallet, shoved it into the pocket where I found it, then got myself outside fast. Taking a deep breath to calm myself, I decided I wouldn't say anything. After all, I was using a phony name too. Woody wasn't coming after me, so I wouldn't go after him. Not unless I had to. But it bothered me, this little secret. It was one thing for Woody to make up stuff about himself, but he had a little kid to take care of. Something was up, and I knew none of it could be good for Luke. On Saturday morning of that week, Woody fried up some sausages and made us blueberry pancakes, a real treat. Then he and Luke left for the nearby city of Fredericks to buy Luke some new sneakers and catch a movie. I washed the dishes and went to the horse farm to see about getting work. I rode over to the farm with Nora and her mom and guessed that the farm was about a mile from the campground. If I got tired, I thought I could walk over, but I'd have to find a way to get there without being seen from the road. Heavenly Days? I asked from the back seat, reading the mailbox sign. It's a horse rescue facility, Nora asked. She looked at her mother sitting beside her up front. Can you explain it, Mom? Yeah, sure. All the horses at this farm are here because the authorities, the courts in Maryland, took them away from abusive owners. Mrs. Crawford, who runs the place, rehabilitates them and then tries to find homes for them. Like foster care for horses, I said. Exactly. Nora smiled at me, and I was thinking she looked especially cute, the way she had braided her hair. Nora's mother looked at me in the rearview mirror. You're not afraid of horses, then? No way, I told her. I'm not afraid of anything. I got introduced right off to the farm owner. Mrs. Crawford was a short woman in blue jeans, boots, and an oversized flannel shirt. She pulled her thick gray hair back into a ponytail and had a face with a lot of wrinkles. But I had absolutely no idea how old she was. Could have been 40, 50, even 60. Nora says I can trust you, Mrs. Crawford said. You a hard worker? Sure thing, I answered. You're hired then. I'll pay you cash on Friday, she said. And the best part? She didn't make me fill out any forms or show an ID. Can you show him around, Mrs. Crawford asked Nora. Then teach him how to punch in on the time clock and get started on those stalls. Nora gave me a little tour, and I could tell right off that this farm was a place she loved. She pointed out 2 herds of horses in 2 separate fields. Geldings are in one pasture, the mares are in the other, she said. A really beautiful stallion is in the barn along with the horses that need the most care. That meant the horses who came in starving or sick and had their ribs showing or chunks of hair falling out. Horses weren't the only animals at the farm. Nora curled her slender arms around the necks of 2 miniature donkeys named Winston and Earl to give them hugs. I couldn't help but be a little jealous. And introduced me to 3 goats who tried to nibble at my hands. Most of the farm buildings were run down, but the Volunteers at the farm had a nice air-conditioned room with a couch to sit on, and I couldn't help but notice all kinds of snacks on the table. All these places, I thought, I'd check them out good later on, because I was still on the hunt for something I could use as a weapon. If only to protect myself from my father when I got home. A couple Mexican guys, Hector and Miguel, also worked at the farm. "They're illegals," Nora whispered as she watched them carry buckets of feed. She said they didn't speak much English, but it wasn't like I wanted to strike up a conversation with them anyway. Even though I had Spanish in middle school, no way could I understand because they spoke too fast. Nora introduced us in Espanol, but when those guys rattled off something in Spanish and laughed, I figured it was an insult. Was it my poison ivy? I narrowed my eyes and balled up my fists. "Gary, Hector, Miguel," Mrs. Crawford called out. "I need you boys to unload this hay and stack it in the loft above the stalls." I hopped up onto the back of the truck and started grabbing hay bales, but right away I saw that the hay was damp, like it hadn't dried out before getting cut. My grandfather would have never stacked it. He dried it out first. "It's wet," I called out to Mrs. Crawford. "You sure you want to stack it?" Miguel and Hector laughed and looked at me funny. What? Did they think I was just saying that because I was lazy? Miss Crawford returned to the truck. "I know, but I can't afford to wait," she said. "Let's just get it all in the barn. Maybe I can move it around later." When we finished with the hay, Nora showed me the wild stallion in the barn. He was a pretty horse, kind of reddish-brown with a long gold-colored but snarled mane and hair that fell over his eyes. When he spotted us looking at him, he laid his ears flat, turned around, and kicked the wall where we were standing. We jumped back. "Best to stay away from him," Nora warned. I liked it when she put her hand on my arm. "There's a lot of hostility bottled up in him. He already bit Miguel once." "What's he so mad about?" I asked. His previous owner kept him nailed into his stall. He never went outside, wasn't fed regular, and his stall never got cleaned out. When he was rescued, he was walking on 3 feet of his own manure packed down. His head almost brushed the ceiling. Honestly, we thought he'd never put his head up again. Guess you can't blame him for hating people. Miguel started calling him Fuego. She pronounced it Fuego, and the name stuck. It means fire in Spanish. After Nora showed me how to punch in an old-fashioned time clock, I got down to business mucking out those stalls. This meant shoveling manure into a wheelbarrow, which I pushed behind the barn and dumped into a big pile. After a stall got cleaned out, I took straw over the floor. In no time, sweat was dripping down my face and my back. All afternoon while I worked, I heard Fuego snort and kick the wall whenever anyone passed. He sure was ticked off at the world, I thought. I had a lot of time to think while shoveling that manure. I thought about all the food I could buy, if I had to, with the money I was earning. I thought about Nora. How could I not? I thought about how Hector and Miguel had already gotten under my skin. I even thought about some of the things Woody had said, like how I was either running from something or to something, and the dog that had the kite tied to his tail. I thought about Fuego, too, this horse named for fire, who had been nailed into his stall and sometimes not fed for days. It's no wonder he didn't trust nobody and kept kicking at that wall. In some ways, I realized, finally, even if he was an animal, that horse was a lot like me. The following week, while Luke was in school, I worked at the farm every day mucking stalls. Mucking. That sure was the perfect word. It was boring, back-breaking labor. Buddy and I made our way to and from the farm by walking behind a little shopping center, then parallel the road about 100 feet away, just inside the tree line. At one road intersection where there was a good bit of traffic, I crouched and made my way through a water culvert under the road. When I got to the farm, I filled a bucket with water for Buddy and told him to lie down in the shady corner to wait for me. "No barking," I said, and darned if that dog didn't just lay there quiet for hours waiting for me. Well, except for the first day when he took off after the goats. And then that one time he saw a gray barn cat. Every day I checked out a corner of the farm by opening grain bins, pulling out drawers, and poking around in barrels and boxes. Like I said, I didn't know what I was looking for, but something would spark an idea. I was sure of it. Always I tried to stay out of sight. One afternoon, when some state inspector guy came to check the barn, I scooted into a field and pretended to be scrubbing the water troughs. I worried a little that Miguel and Hector might be watching me. Neither ever spoke to me, but they hid behind their Spanish and seemed amused whenever I got close. I was tempted to straighten them both out with my fist, but I didn't want to lose the job. Ha! Mr. R would have been proud of me for using the old if-then thinking. If I punched them out, then I'd probably get fired. So for the most part, I ignored those guys, except for the day I caught Miguel smoking. What happened is I was taking a bucket of manure out back to the pile. I'd had the wheelbarrow, Miguel would have heard me coming. If I had the wheelbarrow, Miguel would have heard me coming. I just had that bucket, though, and I caught him red-handed lighting up a cigarette behind the barn. There was no smoking allowed at the farm, and everybody knew it, because Mrs. Crawford had about 1 million signs up. She was paying us, so I figured we ought to respect that. When Miguel saw me, he took the cigarette out of his mouth and dropped his hand to his side quick, trying to hide it. I threw manure on the pile and just stood there, holding the bucket and staring at him. Mrs. Crawford said, "No smoking," I told him, pointing to his hand. "No fumar," I added, surprising the hell out of him that I knew any Spanish at all. He tossed a cigarette on the ground and snuffed it out with his shoe. Then he flashed his dark eyes at me. He looked a lot like Tio then. I couldn't help myself. I smiled at him. On Friday of that week, I got paid, get this, $130.50 for 18 hours of work. I got it in 250s, 120, 110, and 2 quarters. It was more cash than I had ever held in my hands at one time. Mrs. Crawford had told me it was cash under the table, which meant she wasn't taking any taxes out of it. I told her thanks, but she seemed embarrassed and asked me not to talk about it. She didn't tell me it was illegal. I found that out from Nora. "My mom is paid under the table too," she said. "Then she goes into town and collects unemployment." "That's good," I said, but Nora shook her head. "No, it's not. She's scamming the government. I mean, I'm glad she gets money so we can eat, but it's wrong." "Why?" Nora dropped open her mouth like, "Duh, you stupid bonehead." "Because if no one paid taxes, there wouldn't be money for libraries, hospitals, schools, ambulances, police." "Fine with me if no police," I stopped her. She waved me off. "Just because you're in trouble right now, you think that. But if we didn't have police and courts and stuff, this world would be chaos." I didn't debate her anymore after that. I decided Nora thought too much about things, and I didn't know if that was good or bad. But she did make me wonder about all the deception. Mrs. Crawford did a great thing saving horses, but here she was cheating the government. And wasn't I deceiving everybody with my fake name, and Woody with his, and Hector and Miguel because they snuck into the country? Not to mention my deadbeat father, who sobered up and apologized and got out of trouble nearly every time my mother called for help. My heart skipped a beat, because who did she call when my father got out of trouble? The police? I frowned. Maybe, I thought, all this deception was how the world operated. I wasn't sure, but that pile of money in my hand was real, and I figured that's what counted. It was hard-earned, and it would help me get home. I felt squirmy coming to this conclusion, but I was glad the government wasn't getting a chunk of it. And that is the end of chapter 18.